Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com or follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a film professional to discuss their work. And this is made possible by our sponsors, OWC. Go to owcdigital.com for all your filmmaking and computer needs. This week, I'm joined by Adam Beck, whose work includes Cold-Blooded Killers, Booze, Broads, and Blackjacks, among many other films. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, I interrupted you as you were telling me something about the Oilers. And,
That's all right. I could talk a lot about that. So
yeah, and you were talking about sort of it's almost like a dream come true because you get to work and document the Oilers. Can you tell me how you got involved with?
Well, I mainly get to shoot their minor league team in Bakersfield, but that also includes anybody that goes to the farm team. So for me, growing up, I was a huge Oilers fan. Played a little hockey, ice hockey in college. Wasn't that good, but I love the game. So I'm a huge Oilers fan, and so it's just it is kind of a it's awesome to look back as a kid, and not knowing as a kid that one day the people I enjoyed watching on TV, that I'd actually get to meet them and do two things that I actually love, which is filmmaking, mixing with ice hockey. And so so what I end up doing for the Bakersfield Condors, which is the AHL team, the minor league team for the Edmonton Oilers, is shoot their opening videos. So I kind of produce those. I would shoot game content, do graphics, stuff like that. And so that's gonna start working in a different type of content, but different approach, anyways. But Duke says I want to do things different and make things better, improve. But back to the hockey. So yeah, I kind of take this when shooting ice hockey. I take this narrative approach to filming the game, because I'm not shooting for broadcast to show people on TV or whatever like that per se. It's really for the fans when you get to the arena. And so I'm looking at the game a little bit differently, and also being a former ice hockey player, not a professional one, but just a real lover of the game, that I have a kind of that perspective with me, that what happens on the ice. I can I know what's going on, what type of plays are. I know nothing of it. It's not foreign to me. It's very familiar. So I think that's kind of something that helps me out as well. But go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I was going to say I have a controversial question for you.
Sure.
In the 90s, Fox got the broadcast rights for many of the teams in the NHL, and they made a glowing puck. Are you a fan of it or not a fan?
Oh, not a fan whatsoever. Well, I think the thing that made hockey a little bit better to watch on TV, which was HD. Yeah. It was a night and day difference, because you could actually see the puck. Yeah. You didn't need a glow; you could actually see it in HD. And a bigger screen, the better, obviously. But it's a very different sport to see in person.
Yeah.
And that I was actually just talking to somebody this morning, Instagram messenger to use, who's Union Grip on the show, and they're just shooting at a Kings game, I think last night. Mm-hmm. And he's like, it was his first game. He absolutely loved it. I said, if you can afford it, next time you go, get glass seats in the corner. Said there's nothing like someone getting checked 2 feet in front of you. It's because you're right there. It's so up close, and that's where I actually get to shoot a lot of times. So I'm not far away. I'm up against the glass, which makes it can make it a little bit difficult to pull in focus and stuff like that, because I'm using larger sensors. I'm not using regular TV type camera. So
well, I remember talking to a person who worked for the Marlies here in Toronto.
Okay.
And they were always saying that the games for the minor leagues are better to watch. They personally found it better because all the people playing are hungry. Like, they want to get to the NHL, and so they're playing their hearts out, even if it's not an important game. Do you find that when you
that's difficult to compare, but I could definitely see that being true just from a normal psyche, in the sense that because you can see NHL players, they get their contract, of X $1 million, whatever it is, and then they take a year off. I mean, I think that's kind of, you hear about players coming to the camp, maybe not be in the best shape. So, I could definitely see that. Whereas a young kid, because these are like, the AHL is like 20 years old, maybe. Depends if they go through juniors and stuff. There's a requirement where they can jump into the AHL or at the state and juniors. And so, yeah, it's they may not have an experience or don't know how to, let's say, prep as a professional hockey player, how to maintain or get that shape. They may not take it as serious. You can see that sometimes in young players. But yeah, you definitely see there's a hunger, right? That's their goal. It's just, these are people who are extremely close to reaching their dream. And so it's inspiring. It's actually it's great to watch because these are people who are getting to live that dream. And in a lot of ways, being in this business, if you're a cinematographer or whatever, and you're doing this for a living, you're living your dream. A lot of people have to do that, right? They have to settle, or they've chosen to settle for whatever reasons. It could be personal things they have to, right? And so, it's great to see that. And so you root for them. You want them to succeed.
Now, I have one last hockey question before
No.
before we alienate everyone watching.
It's all right. That's right.
Was it the Wayne Gretzky era of the Oilers that got you hooked on that team?
Well, it actually was the Olympics when I was a kid.
Okay.
And so the story to become an Oilers fan was I born and raised in California. So, which is odd, Oilers fan, you're California. And I was like, oh yeah, this is really cool. And so then I had a friend, and I think it was elementary school, who had an Oilers pen. He's like, oh, you should like these guys because they just won the Stanley Cup. I think might have been the last year they won the Stanley Cup, which Gretzky wasn't a part of. It might have been the one prior. So it's a long time ago. And so I was like, all right, that'll become my favorite team. Jump on the bandwagon, per se. But it's been a long drought since. They haven't won the Stanley Cup since then. So it's been a long time waiting. So, and I think, you always have this affection for Oilers fan for Gretzky, but you have like Ryan Smith and other people who've gone through the organization, like Doug Waite, a guy who may not won a Stanley Cup, but that you just admire for different qualities, whether it's their work ethic, like Ryan Smith, just take things from these people. So it's awesome to actually get to see some people like I filmed like Leon Draisaitl, who's like leading the league in points right now, won MVP a couple years ago. I got to film Connor with David Moon's recovering from as a rookie recovering from his collarbone injury, and watching them practice and then filming them on a red, high frame rate, stuff like that to a certain extent. But it's amazing to see these athletes perform. And it seems like 21, 22-year-olds at the time, 20-year-olds. I think Connor was 18, and to see what they are today, it's no surprise. It's amazing athletes. So a lot of respect to them and what they do. Yeah, they get paid a lot of money. But they put a lot of work in that.
Oh, and they beat the hell out of their bodies. It's like
a lot of respect to them for it's not even the abuse, but it's just the amount of preparations people take to be at a high level. I have a lot of respect for that they take care of themselves and they work hard at it. So which I think Sorry, I was gonna say. No, you talk. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say because there's a documentary called "The Last of the Gladiators," and it's all about Knuckles Nyland from the Montreal Canadiens.
Okay.
And they go through like how much damage most hockey players actually do to their body. So it's like here's the goons versus like someone like Gretzky, like, and it's just the wear and tear on their bodies because they're professionals. That's 100% what their focus is. And it's just
Yeah, and then they live with those injuries, or they live with that for the rest of their life. And so, they may be done at, let's say, 40 if they're lucky. They last that long. Then, till they're 65, whatever it is, or however long they last. It's much longer than that. Some do. Some are really old, like in 80s or 90s, something like that. But, that they end up living with a lot of that, the abuse that they, occurred during the time they played. So, but yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I love the game. I love watching it play. And hockey players are just really good people in general.
Yeah.
So it's really nice.
There's a show in Canada called Battle of the Blades, and it's a reality show, and they take famous hockey players, and they have to do choreography. For figure skating. So they make them do figure skating. And I got to see one of the shows, and one of the hockey players almost fell on us because you're on the ice watching.
Yeah.
And of course, like right after came right over Claude Lemieux and was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry," and like didn't have to do that, couldn't, but really good guys.
Yeah, it's nice. I can't really compare them to other sports. I did work with Super Bowl for NBC one year, but
Yeah,
and they all seem pretty nice. I mean,
yeah,
but yeah, it was I'm fortunate. I feel blessed to got the
yeah,
opportunity to be around the team that I kind of, in a way. I mean, I'm really far away from Edmonton, but to see these guys end up playing for them right now. I think they have 11 or 12 people on the Oilers that all been adventures in the last 5 years. And so I've seen all these. I've filmed all these guys, and
yeah.
so to see their ability to play and then see them mature and succeed at their dreams is it's awesome. It's cool to see.
Yeah.
It's inspiring.
Now, enough hockey talk, so we don't lose
Yes,
everyone.
I understand that.
I could talk all day with you about that. How did you get into cinematography?
Um, that's interesting. My dad had an ad agency when I was really young, and he was always kind of artistic. My mom did a little bit of theater. My brother did SAG for a while, was an actor, did a lot of background work. He went to school to directing and things like interacting. So the arts are always kind of in there, even though you know, I, you know, I'm an athletic person. My mom was a tomboy. There's a tomboy. She's still around. Um, uh, she's actually she is 78 and moves around like she's 60. It's amazing. So, but my uncle had owned a video store, and one Easter we were visiting family in Las Vegas, and he let us take this video camera. And I was about 12, and I just took this video camera out and started filming, like walking around down the street behind cars, low angle, kind of tire. And I was watching it, I said, wow, this is really cool. It looks like it's like this could be the point of view could be an animal or like a monster or whatever. It just had this unique look. Because we're always, used to filming. We take pictures, we take it from our height that we're standing, or maybe we're sitting down somewhere, but we rarely get down to the ground or we go really high and look down. So that kind of planted a little bit of a seed. And then it just, as things went on, it's like you just kind of get drawn to taking pictures and things of that nature. I did some black and white photography in college, and it was always kind of there, like, hey, this is something you creatively enjoy doing, and the creative part of me really fulfills me. And so that's kind of how it kind of started. And then, one day I just was like, all right, I'm going to try to do this. And so I took some college courses, but really it was I really didn't start learning until I ended up buying a camera and just kind of learning, going out and shooting and finding people that were better at it than I was and just picking their brain and getting friends that became mentors and just asking questions and how do you do this or why would you do this and others, and then telling them like test like George Meridian AC it's been a huge influence on my career in a sense, because I started testing filters for Schneider just happenstance because I had similar lenses, and so then I showed him my test. He's like, test. Those are the 3 words he said me, and it was really just keep going, keep pushing, find the boundaries. When does this filter work? When does it fail? When does it work? Can you find in a way, can you find to work for something else that people are using it for? And so that kind of a process for me to whether I'm using a lens or any type of equipment, that you should really try to find what you can use it for. And so that becomes a part of your arsenal. It's interesting because I know we're a very equipment focused industry to a certain extent, right? Black Friday was just recently, so what sell you can buy can help you make better pictures or better images, remove the camera, smooth it. And I found during the pandemic, one thing I did find was I ended up getting a subscription to the American Cinematographer archive, and so which I absolutely love, and I have to re-up on it, but let you go back to the beginning and read all their articles and see how technology's changed and But there's one article by Gordon Wiley, who's a director for a movie called Forced Landing, which is like 1940, 1941. And he was talking about Citizen Kane had just come out, so he talked a lot about Toland's work on that. But how when sound came in, they stopped using the camera to tell stories because they just relied on, the audio, the dialogue to really tell the story. And so he was kind of hammering, as a director, he was hammering like, we need to tell better stories with the camera. We stopped doing that. In a way, I see a lot of that today, right? We get a new piece of equipment out in the industry. We're like, oh, look, it does this. And so we just use it because it's a cool shot. But are we really using that to tell stories in the best way? And that's something that when I'm looking at, like when I'm testing something or I'm working on a job, that's kind of like, why am I using this? And so that becomes, that's something that during the pandemic, I kind of, that really kind of inspired me to look at things a little bit differently.
That kind of makes me think of, you mentioned your father running the ad agency.
Mm-hmm.
When I was doing research for this, that you talked about, he taught you about composition and the weight of the image. What did he teach you in terms of the weight of the image?
There's a balance to it. And I think, just in the sense that, you have open space on one side, or like, an object on the other side of the image, and so does it feel off, off center? Does it feel like it's weighted correctly? And so looking at composition, you can draw things to that. And you can also draw associations to storytelling that way too. I have an empty space, or I have a daughter who's about to shoot her first project. She's 15. And so we were going over composition last night and having a locked off shot, and how if you have a room, you have a locked off shot, it's just blue, but you have the audio, the character play from wall to wall or frame to frame. Does it make them feel like they're, somehow locked in this box, or are they kind of, constricted? And does it help tell that, show that part of their character? And so that's it in a sense, like, what are we doing with that frame? Whether it's light, whether it's where the actor's placed in the frame, whether they far away or they close up, how much space around the actor do we have in the frame? Actors, depends on what we put on. And so those are all kind of things that we kind of, as cinematographers, at least for me, as learning what do we like as our own aesthetics, but at the same time, what do those things mean to us, so that when we read a page of a script, what comes to our mind, and then what does the director think? And if that's, director's thinking something else, then so be it. That's what they want. That's what you should give them. But it also informs you as your own aesthetics to say, well, I kind of think this. What do you think about that? And it starts dialogue where it actually may not end there, what you're thinking, but it could take you and the director to a whole other place, which may make for a better picture. And so, I think that's kind of some of it. There's an old book called the 3C and the 5C Cinematography. Composition is one of them, and it talks about, framing and things of that nature. It's an older book, but it's still got a lot of great nuggets in there, wisdom, and how to look at an image and things of that nature.
What would you say, like you've talked about, your dad and doing stuff, and you talked about helping your daughter. Is there an artist or particular artwork that you go to for inspiration?
That's kind of interesting, because a lot of people, it's funny because you'll hear other cinematographers talk about paintings and stuff. A lot of times for me, it's other cinematographers' work of a project a whole, like a film they shot. Robert Krasker's The Third Man. Mm-hmm. Amazing black and white work, like probably some of the best ever. I would say some of the best ever shot, obviously. But there's works like that I have a lot of respect for. Even Toland's work in Citizen Kane, and how many visual effects shots they have, just as many as Star Wars. And this is 30 some odd years prior to that movie being made. And for me, it's I kind of look at that differently. I mean, there's like things like Shot Deck I have on my website, my desktop right now, for another project I'm working on, that you're come up with ideas and looks and things of that nature for a project. But sometimes it's just emotion, like things that I felt or have gone through personally, or reading the script, or what is that? How do I identify with that? But I guess it could be other things that I respect other people's work and other cinematographers' work. So for me, it's not just one thing, or it's not just one piece of work or one part, just photographs or paintings. It's not really paintings at all. I don't look a lot of paintings. That's a lot of things that kind of bring that to the table. My own life experiences. I think that's what separates us as cinematographers too, right?
Yeah.
And we all have our own different life experiences, our own home lives, whether we're married or single, or are our parents still living? Are you gone through the grief of losing? Like, I've lost my father. That has shaped me, and so, and I had an amazing relationship with him. So, all these things form us as people, and those affect our sensibilities.
So when you get a script, how do you like to go through it? Like, do you make notes in the margins? Do you?
So I actually, what I end up doing is I'll read it a couple times, and then I try not to make any notes until I've read it at least once completely. I try to do it twice. It doesn't always work. And then I end up actually printing it out, and I print it out in landscape and reduce it to 75%. And what that does, it gives me the script on one side of the page, and the other side of the page is blank. And so that allows me, and I usually end up keeping that copy as long as I can on like waste paper, but it also allows me to keep track of my notes. And so as I go and make my own notes, and then I meet with the director, then I start to, make, additions or subtractions to those notes. Okay, we're not doing this. He doesn't like this idea, or she doesn't like this idea. And so, but it allows me to kind of keep track, see where, how my thought process actually has even changed from the first time reading it, or the second, third time reading it actually. But that's kind of how I do it. At first, it's just read it and then print it out and start making notes on it.
Interesting. Now, you've also said in other talks and what have you that there's 3 important things that a cameraman can do. What are they, and how did you come up with that?
Well, I think I think it's one thing you always do is, this isn't a business where you can do everything by yourself. It's a very collaborative process, and so to think that as cinematographers somehow come up with everything and do everything, we don't pull focus on everything. We have NAC does that, and we may come up with a lighting diagram, but we have a lot of input from our gaffers, and we may be sitting on a dolly operating if we don't have an operator, but we're not pushing the dolly ourselves. And so this is all a collaborative process. And so in that process, it's you have to be able to share for other people to understand what you're doing. And so there's no secret. I guess I'm trying to say, since it's a collaborative process, you can't really say it's a secret, or you've done everything by yourself, whatever it is. And so I think you owe it to the people to share. It's like it's a falsehood to say, hey, look, I shot this, and look how great it is, and somehow you should get full credit for that. Well, that's not, I didn't push that dolly that I'm sitting on. So, they're a part of that process too. They help create that image. And so I think sharing that information with others it's honesty, right? It's saying, hey, this is what I do. This is what I love to do, but I didn't do this by myself. And then in sharing that, you're also allowing people, the next generation, to understand that, it isn't just about you. It's about the story that you're telling, right? Because I think I get it. We're in a business where we're trying to sell ourselves or our abilities. And for me, that's personally really kind of hard to do. So, but for me, it's about us as a team that did this. And yes, my responsibility may be, the camera and shooting me and stuff like that, but overlooking those departments. But I didn't do this myself. I'm not an actor. I'm not a director. I'm not, I may be paying attention to what the actors are saying and how they're saying it and how their performance is, but it's not my decision on what take to use or where to make that cut. Even though I try to shoot for that, but it's I don't know how to say that's not authority and power. And I think when we try to do everything on our own, we kind of muck it up. I think we're much better because we are collaborative, and then try to say, oh, look what I did all by myself. And so I know I'm probably not really answering that question for you, but one of the things when sharing is to be honest about that. You know, my daughter is in a media arts program in a high school, and I sit on the advisory. And this media arts program is actually a film school inside of a high school. And so giving back to them, asking them questions, pushing them, you know, why are you putting the camera here, or why would you light it this way, and allowing them to ask questions back. But what would you do? But give them reasons. Why I do this because I think it helps tell the story better this way, or you know, and then also just share other information. In the sense that when I come across someone who's like, hey, I'm trying to pitch something, it's like, oh, I haven't heard of shot yet. Go to that website. It's great for getting materials for pitches and things of that nature, getting a concept across to people. And so just always being open to sharing, because I know this is competitive business. It's a hard business, but at the same time, I don't want to do this alone. I don't want to be alone doing this. This doesn't seem. Yeah. I'm not doing this to say, hey, look at me. I mean, I want to work, so I want people to recognize that I can do good work. But at the same time, that's not what it's about. It's the fun isn't doing the work. It's, you know, it's not necessarily about, oh, look at an award I got. I mean, you can get an award pretty easy these days anyway. There's about 1 million, you know, what do you call it, film festivals. Mm-hmm. But that's what it's about. It's about creating this world that doesn't exist, which is a really interesting concept in itself. As human beings, and that we're creating our own worlds. And does that give us an insight to a higher power, in a sense, because we are ourselves being like the creator or a creator in that way. And so, you know, so I like to share and give back, because I think it's important to give back. It's important to share and let the people know what you're messed up. They're going to make their own mistakes, and they need to make those own mistakes, right? So like I was telling my daughter last night that you're going to this is your time to mess up. Go do it. And don't expect perfection. You know, just go and enjoy the process. Learn something from it. Even though I'm telling her all these things that I'm sure most of it might be going over her head a little bit, but you know, it's hard to tell people who don't have experiential wisdom if they've never experienced. How do they relate to that? How do they tie that onto it? And so, but you know, I think after her shoot, she's going to go, okay, now I know what he's talking about. And so that's part of it. It's giving back is one of the 3 things.
Now I have one last question for you that I ask everyone I interview. A lot of people have turned to streaming services in the last year. Is there a show or a movie you found that people should check out?
Man, that's a tough one. So what we did in my household, I have 3 kids, is that we started every night when the pandemic hit, someone got to pick something. And so one night would be, let's say, my youngest, and we went to the oldest, I'm the oldest in the family. And so, and then the 5th night would be me, and the 4th night was my wife's. And so what was interesting, though, we got to share what each person wanted to see and watch. And so I was able to share some of the movies that I grew up watching with my children. And so it was interesting. And then I could say, hey, you know, I bet the person shot this, or I know the person shot this, and this person I've worked for that person. They're really nice. And so that was really interesting. I would think the thing that I probably took away that wasn't necessarily a show, which was probably the American Cinematography archives, just reading the history and what it took to capture an image. We're so fortunate today that, you know, you pretty much put a battery in a digital camera and turn it on, and now you're ready to go, right? There's an image there. There's no, you know, mad scientist lab, you know, that you have to send a negative off to get exposed, and so, or it's already exposed, but so it's kind of, to me, that was really interesting in the sense that twofold. One, to see the history and to read it and watch some of those movies. So like when I read the article of Force 90, I wouldn't have watched it. And to see this director that I read an article about, to see his work, to see what he just accomplished at the time he wrote it. And it's really interesting. I feel like sometimes you get a different perspective on history, of cinema, and then also just be in touch with kind of what my kids like watching and also sharing. And of course, we probably went through all the bubble movies because we had a lot of time. Sorry about the cough there.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to interview today.
Thank you,
and that's it for this week. Make sure to check out filmmakeru.com or for our latest courses, and follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_you. Of course, I'd like to also thank our sponsors, OWC. Go to owcdigital.com for all your filmmaking and computer needs. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching.